Hello and good evening. It is Thursday, September 30th, 2021. I hope you've had a somber and reflective Truth and Reconciliation Day if you're in Canada. And I'm Dave Mader coming at you with Star Trek TV and movie reviews. Lower Decks, Season 2, Episode 8, Excretus is over. But we're just getting started here on Live Long and Podcast. Let's bring in the rest of our panel here to break this episode down as it aired. Well, if you're in the States on Paramount Plus, and if you're in Canada, it's actually going to air a little bit later today on the CTV Sci-Fi channel. So we got Jeff Mader with us, my brother. How you doing, Jeff?
Good. Ready to talk about this episode.
Yeah, the naked time.
It's naked time!
And also joining us is Jeff and I's cousin, Davan Skelhorn from Nova Scotia, and Locutors of Trek, another Star Trek podcast you should definitely check out. How you doing tonight, Davan?
Not too bad. Horses love me.
That's good. More than they love Mariner.
Apparently.
You know, that wasn't even part of the simulation. And this 8th episode is kind of I thought it was a pretty interesting one overall. I thought that... we already got one comment. Jeremy's with us tonight. We're streaming.
Back.
He's back. We're streaming here live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, or you might be listening to us in the audio version wherever you pick up your audio podcasts. So we're going to be talking about all this episode. This episode was written by Ann Kim, who I think he's written at least one other episode before, which was last year's Moist Vessel. So this is Ann's next episode, which was the 4th episode last year, which got kind of mixed reviews from the panel at the time. Not the worst, not the best. And so here we are with Excretus, which the whole premise of this is that it's the drill instructor is coming to the ship to give the crew some simulations here to kind of teach the lower. Well, they think like teach the lower decks how the other side lives in the senior officers and vice versa. And well, before that though, we had the coldest of cold opens, where the lower decks crew is our leads here are sort of abandoned on the outside of the ship as they're doing some kind of work here in like the encounter suits. Just to bring that up. What do you guys think of this cold open with the 4 lower deckers working on some kind of satellite or a repair job? And then there's a distress call that the bridge gets where they're asked to we have to go save this time loop. We're getting a distress call. Oh, we got the same time loop as a kind of a playoff cause and effect. And they get left there for 6 hours until they're rescued.
I thought it made sense as a cold open for this episode because they were trying to build that dynamic of that wedge between the upper and lower decks in this episode. And I don't think they'd be leaving the upper deckers on that satellite for 6 hours. So they got the point across, I think.
But they would have signed out their mag boots, Davan.
True. I mean, I would.
Jeff, do you love Captain Freeman's ongoing go to warp catchphrases like tonight was
warp me?
Yeah, there's some good ones. Like they're having fun with it for sure. This was a great episode for me. I enjoyed. This is probably my favorite episode so far of the series. I think the writer really had a lot of fun with the dynamic between the upper and lower decks, but also just like Star Trek history, like went through a whole bunch of different things that, were great references to all sorts of different episodes. And kind of to me is what this show should be. It should be fun. It should be not too serious. And it should, be jam full with jokes. And it made me laugh a whole bunch.
And Jeff, just on that too, like the sort of like what this show has sort of maybe different than the other Star Trek series, other than it's animated and it's more comedy focused, is this like this whole, what is it to be a lower decker? What is it to be a senior officer? What does it mean? Just this idea that the lower decks are expendable.
Or maybe that wouldn't have even mattered since lower decks are so expendable to you.
Ridiculous. We're all equals on this ship, right?
They sleep in a hallway.
Oh,
Oh, yeah. And so, Jeff, what do you find that compelling, or do you think that that's sort of could be just?
I think it's just I don't know if it's compelling, but it's a good dynamic to like have motivations for the characters and stuff. But like I don't know, the stuff that's compelling is like the individual characters and their journeys. Like the whole Boimler thing tonight with the Borg, I thought was great, and Mariner screwing up over and over, and having to figure it out with her mom, and all that stuff is good for me. It's not so much the fact that it's the lower decks, upper decks. It's the fact that these sets of four, the upper deck people and the lower decks, are kind of like bonding at the end of the day. That's really what's going on here.
Right. Davan, question here from Jeremy. He's asking, Tendi seems a lot more skilled than just being medically trained. Why is she there? Or why is she there? Do you got a take on this?
Well, she is the mistress of the winter constellations.
She is the mistress of the winter constellations. As I jump up to go get that clip, but where is it?
I'll tell you
Anything for you, mistress of the winter constellations.
So, I mean,
Jeff, you got to take on this?
That has to come with a skill set.
I don't know. Yeah, I think they're just giving Tendi more things. I don't know. This episode had a lot of visual imagery. I don't think we'll ever get out of our minds, and we'll never be able to.
It's naked time.
No, exactly.
Shax is back.
Shax is back and scratched up
by Dr. Tiana. Yeah, like I would say that Tendi seems to be very knowledgeable, but she's got some interpersonal skills that she might need to work on before she can rank up. This sort of my take on it. She's so naive and enthusiastic, and she's got a lot of good qualities, but like I think she's also very naive too. And just so the whole premise with this episode tonight was: are the lower decks expendable? Can they bond together? And we get to meet this drill instructor whose name I never quite got in this episode, but she's from a species that is able to separate their head from their torso from their legs in 3 floating parts. I don't think we've ever seen this species before, Davan, right?
Definitely not.
Definitely not. It was. What did you think about her, this character?
Did you see the little arms that like pick up the legs when the legs fall over?
No.
Little arms come out of the top of the legs and like hold up the leg. It was the weirdest thing. You can almost see them there, like on the side. I think of her legs. Those little green things on the sides. I think those are arms. It's a very strange species.
Absolutely.
But,
the character's name.
I forget the name of they say the alien species name too.
Oh, Shari Yennem. Yennem doesn't quite fall off the tongues here, but just to bring that up, it's like that. Shari Yennem. Yennem. Jeff, what did you think of this character?
Was a great foil, was necessary to get us to where I wanted them to get us, which was let's go through all these different holodeck programs and really have fun with Star Trek history and these characters too.
Jeremy is pointing out to us that this species has appeared before in Star Trek the animated series, which is canon.
I stand corrected.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Thank you for pointing that out, Jeremy, because I'd say of all the canon, the Star Trek the animated series is the show that I've watched the least, but I do intend to remedy that.
I've seen it all, but I don't recall what episode they were from. But I believe him. I believe Jeremy.
Yeah, I'm sure that's right. If you know the name of the episode, Jeremy, let us know in the comments. But because I would like to learn more about that. And yeah, like I thought that just it's not they jump into the premise pretty quickly, which is all about like, okay, you're going to go into this simulation, and they're kind of switching roles. The whole thing is a ruse for her to fail them so she can keep her program going or whatever. But we get to meet the first simulation we go through is Mariner, who goes into the mirror universe, and she's like, I'm going to ace this, and I am going to be off for lunch for the rest of the day. And so she gets into this mirror universe situation. By the way, I just loved seeing like mirror universe versions of these uniforms and the Cerritos. I also pulled a clip for what's his name? We got to see Evil Mirror Billups and Evil Mirror Rutherford, who just talked about how torture is quite a turn on.
Oh, nothing makes me hornier than torturing someone. I'm horny all the time.
And being horny always gets me in the mood to torture.
Oh, you can lose a whole day to that cycle.
I get the feeling the writer of this episode shares my dislike for the mirror universe.
You dislike the mirror universe?
I don't like any of those episodes really. I mean, the Enterprise one's pretty cool actually. For the most part, I skip those episodes.
Yeah, so you only like the end. I think that's maybe the only good episode of Enterprise. But I did even Mirror Jeff, even Mirror Shax as a hologram is funny.
Who dareth bump into me?
Oh, hi, Dareth. I'm Double Dog Dareth. Hi.
Oh, okay, good. Just checking.
No, he's the best, man. Anytime they can use him as much as possible. He's awesome.
Yeah,
I just like their double hand smash on his chest too. Like he barely acknowledges it, but he's like, "All right, yeah, that's fine."
Yeah.
We also got to meet the mirror Boimler. It's not really the mirror universe; it's just a simulation. But the mirror Boimler was quite disturbing. I didn't pull any clips, so to speak, but he was just like, "I either have to impress the captain or kill the captain to get sent to another ship," which is
a sneakier ship, wasn't it, or was it? No, a more sinister ship.
A more sinister ship. That's where you want to be. You always want to be in the most sinister ships. And so there's kind of this rapid fire going around of all these simulations. I think after the mirror one, we get the medical ethics simulation with Tendi, where she has to treat a Klingon who, she's like, I'm not allowed to do harm to you because he wants an honorable death. And so she ends up.
That was funny.
Yeah, it just erodes on her very quickly. I think I have a photo from that scene.
Time of life 2,700 hours.
Yeah, here it is.
Yeah, which is a reference to the Worf episode where, I forget what that episode's called, but yeah, like again, like they keep referencing great episodes and just be like, all right, let's throw him into that situation, see what you're gonna do, Tendi.
Yeah, he wants to die, needs his honorable death, and I don't know if like it's they come in like those red scrubs, the ones from like the Next Generation, where it only lets your face come through for some reason, and everything else is needs to be sterilized, I guess. And then just the nurse who comes in, her doctor or whatever, he's like, we need to give this Klingon an honorable death.
We have to get this warrior an honorable death stat. Get me 300 cc's of any type of poison. I have to die. They have giant hearts, so many backup organs, sir.
They have giant hearts, so many backup organs.
Because he threw his back out picking up a peanut.
Yeah.
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 That is embarrassing for a Klingon. That's true.
Yeah, no, he needs to die, of course. Look into his eyes and go, "Rah!" as they do. I thought this simulation was hilarious too. Very quick, it was like a series of skits almost,
This was maybe the most Family Guy-esque episode we've gotten in a lot of ways.
Yeah. It was kind of really different, than most. Almost like a clip show in some ways, or a montage. The third simulation we got was the Old West town where Mariner was dealing with. It was basically the Way of the Gun, or is that what the episode's called? The Spectre of the Gun. Sorry, from the original series.
Yeah,
Spectre of the Gun from the original series, where they have to like do the whole OK Corral. She's like, okay, whatever. I'm in Old West town. This one she fails even faster than the Mirror Universe one. She gets like her horse won't even work with her and tries to trample her. Turns out that wasn't the rigged part of the simulation from the drill instructor. That was just her.
I think she was just screwing with her. I think I don't know. It would seem too ridiculous. Like she literally just got on it and then.
Yeah, it was just like, okay, get on this horse, and then it's like, no, you did that wrong too.
The horse also attacked her. Like it was so ridiculous.
Yeah, it was.
Horses love me. I'm a maverick.
Horses love me. Yeah, it was. Yeah, that was the third simulation. Not going well for Mariner at this point. And then the next scene was like a scene with Mariner and Tendi, and we didn't even mention Rutherford actually, because he had a whole simulation too, where he blew up.
Yeah, right.
where he was like the chief engineer of like a Constitution class. He was basically like in the 2290s or something like that, and it was like he was kind of given like the whole situation where what that Spock was given in Wrath of Khan, like the ship's about to blow up. What do you do? He couldn't even open the door without burning his hand, and then he tried to use his boots to open the door, but then he blew up the ship.
Did he open the containment unit? Like, didn't he just like let out the explosion?
Yeah, and like I guess like there was no they were all programmed to be unwinnable. They were all Kobayashi Marus, I guess.
True.
You know,
they were rigged from the start.
Even the one Boimler did was rigged, even though he was figuring that out as he was going. But yeah, like just more references, more like jumping around. I like how he had like the ensign and the like the Wrath of Khan movies uniform. Just like the little banter there was really good. I thought like I was mostly like they were jumping around so much. I really was enjoying it. Yeah, and so they all, when the lower deckers get together to lament it, they go, well, Boimler must be not doing right, but he was doing this whole Borg thing for the whole episode pretty much. And you know, he gets 79% on the first go. He phasers a couple Borgs and then he gets out of there. I don't have a Borg picture, but he phasers a few of the Borg, and then he he keeps going through. He wants to get he starts off at 79%. He gets up to 83%. He starts like saving babies, Borg babies, more Borgs. Then he eventually is getting into like, I taught the Borg Queen empathy, and I stuff because that's Boimler. He just has to be like obsessive and do everything fully through. You know,
have an interesting design. You look almost human, Boimler.
You've been boimed.
Yeah.
You've been boimed, Borg Queen.
Oh, we got somebody here on Twitch saying, I can't see too fast. Can't see the toys. Go slower with those toys.
Sorry. Here's the Borg Queen.
Good stuff. Yeah, I'm finding these characters, especially like even Boimler, who I didn't really like at the start, more and more endearing. Now, Jeff has pointed out that Boimler is a little bit more like me in real life, so that could have something to do with it.
Excellence.
He's less whiny now, though. He's more like he's more a man of action now than he is like, oh, woe is me, you know, which is he's more likable in that way, and like they're writing him better, and they're writing the scenarios of the show a lot better as well. Like I was like all along with him the entire Borg mission, like the one part where like he gets out of there and then like another ship shows up, he's like, just do what I tell you, and he blows up the ship. Like everything with it was really, really good.
Right. He was so inept, I guess, in the first season. Like you're like, this guy shouldn't be in Starfleet. Like he's like more so than even Reg Barkley, you know, at the start of his run. Like it seemed like Boimler was even less capable, but now it's like it's they've gone completely the other way with Boimler. He's actually very capable. He's just not a very violent person. He doesn't like.
I like that they
throw down.
I like that they show that his research has his researching and studious nature has value. Like he was like that in the first season too. It just didn't do any good for him. For now, they're just like, well. He's like, well, I know how to deal with the Borg. I read everything about the Borg, and like,
yeah. Well, I like
that it has value because it should in Starfleet. You know, the more you know, the more.
Later on, Freeman's like, he's one of our best, and Mariner's like, really? But I think he might. I don't know. Like, who is the best on this ship? If it's not him,
Shax.
I guess.
Well, speaking of that, let's talk about the upper deckers because that's kind of the next thing here, guys. Like. I kind of was thinking about that. The upper deckers all represent a member of the lower deckers. So obviously, the captain represents Mariner. I think Ransom is like the Boimler. We have Shax is like the Rutherford, and Tiana is like the Tendi, and they're all different, obviously. But they're there's two red coats, one yellow, one blue, and to see them kind of interact all together as lower deckers was actually a lot of fun for me in this episode. What about you guys?
Yeah, I really liked this episode in general, and it was fun watching them hang out in the sleeping quarters.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
yeah, I think I have a photo there.
Tiana getting some cuddle time there. There you go. Yeah,
Tiana. So they're like a full-on couple. Those two.
Are they? Do we know that?
I think so.
Shax never seems to pay too much attention to her, at least not as much as she pays to him.
Yeah, but he doesn't seem to not he doesn't seem to not be into it either. I don't know. It's kind of like
He has the scratches.
he has the scratches. Yeah, and like to your comment earlier, Jeff, I think that like there is sort of like this. There's like the four senior officers, and then we got the four lower deckers, and they sort of correspond, but it's almost like more like they have horrible bosses, or dick bosses. Because like Rutherford doesn't report to Shax, he reports to Phillips, right? But it's like it's almost like how I think with Mariner and Boimler, like they do correspond to Freeman and Ransom somewhat, but it's not that they are mirrors of each other. I think exactly, but
I think they are. I think they are mirrors of each other. I think if you look at the responsibility and of the captain, and then you have Mariner as the maverick. We have Ransom, who's the do-gooder, the
by the book,
good-looking guy, and Boimler is not none of those things, but he's always doubted, and Ransom is never doubted. Like there's all these different things. They are mirrors of each other. And
and Shax and Rutherford all have an eye thing.
Yeah, that's right.
True.
And it's on the opposite eye.
Well, yeah, his mirror universe
side,
also has the eye thing. Yeah, but he wears an eye patch, the mirror one.
Yes.
I
don't think it's unintentional. The choices made to kind of mirror these characters. That's how I look at it anyway.
I think for sure. Like, I don't know. There's a few extra characters like Billups in here and a couple others that I'm like, well, maybe, I don't know. Maybe they do correspond to some of the other the lesser lower deckers like Manhaver and Ensign Ellis or whatever.
Also with Tiana and Tendi, like Tiana's very comfortable with her sexuality, is very forward. Tendi is a lot more reserved. So like again, like they are kind of doing this mirror dance with the lower and upper deckers.
True. Yeah, I can see that for sure. And then where else? Where are we here in the episode? Okay, then we get to the naked time simulation, which was Mariner's next one, which was maybe my favorite.
It's naked time!
Yeah, she's like, oh, is this the one where everyone got drunk and had sex with each other? And it was like this huge orgy going on in the Cerritos cocktail lounge. With Shax.
Was a brave choice for this episode, no?
I think so. Like, this is not a kid's show, by any means, right?
No.
I think this scene solidified that this is not for children to watch.
No, this is not Star Trek Prodigy. This is Star Trek Lower Decks, and it's going for a different audience for sure.
Yeah, they've had moments like that before, but this one you're really just like, okay, wow, we're going there.
Yeah. And then just Mariner just like, I fail, get me out of here. I don't want to be part of this.
Yeah.
It was pretty funny. It's naked time. Yeah, so I thought that was a lot of fun. Just it was like a really fun gag. We go back to Boimler, and he's up to 94% in the Borg simulation. We get the whole thing with the senior officers. We're like, we love being lower decks. This is great. We just have to sleep in a hallway. And I love Tiana's line too, where she was like, what did you have to do? I don't know. I just went into a transporter room waiting for people that need to use the transporter. And then the rest of the time, people left me alone. That was a great line because you're like, what
I just stood in the back of a conference room.
I stood in the back of the conference room, and that was it.
Which is basically making fun of the extras on Star Trek shows, right? Basically.
Even Chief O'Brien. Like, what is Chief O'Brien doing when he's not transporting people?
Nothing. He's just waiting for the next transporting thing to occur.
Yeah. And there's 3 transporters.
Scrubbing the buffers.
Right? So
Yeah.
I'm sure that like he's probably busier when they're at a planet than if they're not. But yeah, I think it's just a quick like it's always something I was curious about. Like in Star Trek Voyager, they go in and they go, there's somebody in the transporter room. To do what? Just in case, I guess. They need a transporter. You never know when you need an emergency transport, really. So that was all talked about.
Why do they have a medical officer working the transporter room?
I don't know. Yeah, that was. I guess that just your assignment was just to be not noticed, and she found a way to do that. Their whole simulation too, where they're like, you get to do the Klingon simulation, and then it became about stacking crates. They're like, okay, the Klingons are here and Q is here and everything cool is happening, but you guys need to stack these crates real stacky. right? I thought that was just, they're like, what do you mean? Why aren't we in the loop? They're like, get out of here, lower decks. Keep moving.
Which is kind of a mirror of like one of the first episodes, I believe, where they did this gag where, yeah, the lower decks are like cleaning things and, and the the important people are handling it and they're kept out of the loop. And I think, yeah, it's like, here's a taste of your own medicine type idea here.
Absolutely.
And another TNG nod too with those crates where they're like, then why did they make them this shape if they wanted us to stack them? Because those are like the shape of the crates that they always had in the TNG cargo bays.
Yeah.
And like the ones that fell on Worf and stuff, I think were even that shape. Like they were often that shape, and it always seemed strange because
it totally was. Yeah. Like it's just like they were like everything that's weird about Star Trek, we were going to point out. Not just in this episode, but
definitely in this episode,
especially in this episode. Where was
the incubation Borg babies? It was pretty funny.
The Borg babies, everything else. Like I think just like what's going on?
He just finds more of them. Like to get a better score. First he had 3 babies, but then he gets like 6 or 8 babies, and it's 1 more %.
Riker didn't try to save those babies when he found them.
No, he's Ransom. I think Ransom is kind of like the mirror of Riker in a lot of ways. Like this is how we view Riker.
It is. That's exactly who Ransom is. Ransom is basically just a less successful Riker.
Yeah.
Who works on a California class ships, which we know is not necessarily where the glory is.
I like that line too. That most people in the fleet don't even know this model exists, which is funny because we've never heard of it before.
Yeah, we've never heard of it before. It's a new thing for this show, and that makes sense because they never brought it up in any show. About we never even see it in like one of the DS9 battles. I don't think one of these type of ships.
No.
Jeff, I found that clip from the first episode that they did the callback for that you referenced earlier.
Keep it moving, lower decks.
Keep it moving, lower decks.
Exactly. Like so like this whole episode is kind of like having fun with that, which I really enjoy because. I want to see the upper decks and the lower decks interact more. I don't need it to be 2 different crews and 2 different shows. Like get them interacting more and more. And I think it's the
go on missions together. Let's get like Shax and
Baby
Boimler on a mission or something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. And then they had to do the joint mission together, which is the next thing, right after the Klingons, after the stacking, where like they make Mariner the captain and they make Freeman like the pilot or like the con officer. They can't even get out of the space dock. They said they're like that isn't even a percentage, because surprise, surprise, mom and daughter can't get along. And then they go to like the cocktail lounge and everything, and they're kind of lamenting over how bad they've done. But they're like, well, but they kind of notice how the crew is. This has had a purpose of kind of breaking down some of those divides between the upper and lower deckers. And they go, we see what you're doing, but this is where she turns fully evil. She's like, ha ha ha, that was never my plan. You guys are the worst ship in the whole fleet. If I try to do these drills,
villain switch too, though.
It was so maniacally evil for a Starfleet drill instructor, but okay.
It was funny though how she singled them out just for failure because like everyone else passes her test so easily.
Yeah, she's like, not you guys. You guys are the worst. You are even worse than I thought.
You guys abandoned like 6 crewmen in space for 6 hours for a distress call.
Right. And so the cold open also ties in pretty well into the story because they're like, this is why I targeted you, because Freeman was like, go warp time or whatever. And, she kind of forgot what the hell she was doing.
Warp me.
I'm sorry. Warp me. Sorry, Carol. And then so they decide in order to counter her, they're going to basically just first of all, they notice the Boimler is still in a simulation, so therefore they can't be failed. And then I guess they would have been all fired or discharged out of Starfleet if this had gone through. So like Boimler, hold on, just keep that simulation running. And then their plan was, which works, is they take this drill instructor basically on like a scary car ride. It would be like the equivalent of driving your car around really fast, saying like, "Oh, are you the driving instructor? Am I breaking the rules? Well, you're gonna die unless you," because they kind of blackmail her. or they don't they do. They find a crystalline entity. It was crystalline entity day, in space.
Lots of crystalline entities.
I thought I didn't know it was more than one, but apparently there was a bunch of them going on. And so they take her there. They're going to take her to a. They tell her it's a temporal black hole. It's just a real black hole. But yeah, they're like, space is dangerous, man, and we're able to kind of deal with tough situations all the time. We don't need you to tell us if we're good enough to be in Starfleet. So that works. But it means that Boimler has to keep going into this simulation for an exuberantly long time, and he can't avoid these Borgs forever. And he meets that whole thing with the Borg. He gets locked in there. He becomes, hence the name of the episode, I Excretus. He is Excretus of Borg.
There is no Boimler. I am Excretus of Borg.
I laughed out loud when he said that.
Yeah, it was. So he got like holodeck assimilated, I guess. I don't know what that would feel like exactly, but it goes away as soon as the simulation's over. It seemed to have a traumatizing experience for him. He's like, they've erased everything I am.
He needed a drink.
He needed a drink. Yeah, he had a rough day. And I think that was like pretty much the end of the episode. There was kind of like they got the new replicator. I'm sorry, because that was the other thing. The lower decks replicator can only make one piece of pizza at a time, and they were like, "This is ridiculous. These lower deckers deserve to make 2 pieces of pizza at a time."
And have pesto.
Yeah, I forgot about the pesto. She's like, "What is this pesto?" Lower decks can't get pesto.
Or that sweet lobster mac and cheese with the breadcrumbs on the top.
Pesto's not that complicated. I mean, I don't get it. I don't understand. And why only one slice of pizza at a time? I'm confused by this.
Just make them suffer.
Just to make them. I think that's really the point they're making. That it's like there's a class system and maybe it's like a decision based on like the senior staff. Like it's like we had to suffer through this crap, and now we've gotten to the top, and now we're gonna do that to you. And now in this episode, they were like, you know what, we shouldn't do that.
Or say there's
sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's like a certain amount of replicator rationing that has to be done overall on the ship. They probably just give a lot more of those rations to the upper deckers too.
Well, I think that there's like I always like come back to like my own experiences, my own career, like when I was a young professional starting off, right, working in the offices and like, moving up. And there definitely is this mentality from like the generation that's ahead of you, or even the 2 generations ahead of you. In my case, it was the boomers and the Gen Xers, as I'm like one of the elder millennials. They were just like, we had to put up with this shit, so do you. And we had to dress up for work, so do you. And we're like, well, people don't really dress like that anymore. People don't need to go into an office every day to do their job. But it's like, we do it, so you must do it. Or because there's this idea of like fairness. And also like, I think sometimes older people just have this idea of like what they have a kind of a romanticized version of what they did, or how much they suffered to get to where they are. And I'm not saying that that's completely false, but I think that, they go, kids these days don't have discipline, or they don't have this or that or whatever. So therefore they need to have to be sort of forged through these tough experiences. That's just my observation. I think maybe a part of what this episode's trying to say.
Say you'll wear a suit for the equivalent wage they had back in those days.
Yeah, exactly. But times change, and just because it used to be one way doesn't mean it has to be that way anymore. Jeremy's just pointed out in those replicators, everything's programmed to be healthy for you, so it makes eating junk food kind of pointless. But it would also make eating foods like, everything would just taste good, right? Because everything's healthy.
Eat that street corn whenever you want.
Couldn't you, like program like kale to taste like pizza? Like, couldn't you just program that?
Kale's already perfectly delicious the way it is, Jeff.
I mean, I guess if you like kale.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I like
crispy kale is to die for.
Yeah, like the whole thing with the replicators. Like, I think that I think Eddington was the one who said that they were just like reorganized protein molecules, no matter what version you were eating.
What does he know? He can't even grow tomatoes.
Yeah. Do you know how hard it is to grow tomatoes?
Put a seed in the ground, watch it.
It's really easy. I mean, I don't understand any of that. It's hard to grow other things, but not tomatoes.
You know how hard it is to grow tomatoes?
But like, there is something to the fact that like Cisco's dad is a chef, and and Cisco's cooking, and they're not far from Bajor on Deep Space Nine. I think they're always excited when something's like fresh is brought. So I don't think there's nothing to that. I think how good could a replicated thing be? I guess. I mean, it's kind of like a microwave dinner. I think at the end of the day.
And as we've seen, they never quite.
Tarragon on the stuff. Sorry, that was what Eddington pointed out. That
That's a
Cisco
good one.
he puts too much tarragon in that stuffing.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I was just going to say, well, as we've seen too, as Eddington points out a couple of times, it never quite tastes the same. If you've had your lobster mac and cheese that's non-replicated, the replicated version's not going to quite cut it. And I think that's where their desire for the freshness comes in.
Jeremy just says he'd eat Brussels sprouts that tasted like chocolate.
Let me tell you about my Brussels sprouts, Jeremy. They're delicious.
Brussels sprouts don't smell good.
You know what's interesting in this episode is they got the original Borg Queen, the one from the movies, to do the voice of the Borg Queen in this episode. But they
did. They got Alice Creech.
Yeah, it was Alice Creech.
But they've used the other lady that played the Borg Queen in other episodes. So it's kind of interesting that they actually got the original person but have also used the replacement person also in another episode.
Who was the one who played the Dax love interest in Rejoined?
Right.
As well, right.
Right. So
Susanna something, I think is her name.
Yeah.
I didn't. It was like only like 2 or 3 lines that the Borg Queen had in this. They brought back Alice Krieg.
I was sure.
Well, I think she's back anyway, because I think she's in Picard season 2. So she's might have just been hanging around the studios anyway or whatever.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I wonder what they're doing. Like where they, like, I'm guessing they do this in L.A. Lower Decks, but like, do they shoot Picard in L.A. or do they? Because like Discovery's Toronto.
I think Picard is a combination of LA and Toronto. They kind of do, depending on what they're shooting. I think a lot of the, like in the season 1 of Picard, a lot of the exteriors were shot in California, especially like the wineries and Starfleet stuff. But there was most of the interiors were all shot in Toronto.
Nothing looks like France, like LA,
California.
Toronto,
or Toronto.
Yeah, and I think that Star Trek: Strange New Worlds is almost entirely shot in Toronto as well. Like Toronto's become which is kind of different because every show up until Enterprise was always done in Los Angeles, always done in Hollywood, and then I guess then they did a bunch of movies and stuff, and those were Hollywood. But yeah, I think Star Trek Discovery was the first show to break from that and produce in Canada, for better or worse. A lot of characters do mention that real food tastes better than replicated.
Yeah.
It's become a replicator.
especially the brine of Hasperat.
I think there's something to the artificial ingenuity of Star Trek that gets tiresome on like the crews, and this is expressed multiple times in multiple shows. But like DS9, you kind of notice it the most because like they talk about, because it's a station and there's lots of people bringing things there, and then there's restaurants and stuff, and it's more of like a city. Whereas like on a ship, it's just like, oh, this is what we got. It's more rationing. It's more like military situation. And so for me, like that's kind of makes sense because and the whole, it makes me think of the whole money system with the Ferengi, and it's like, okay, that actually does have a place in this world.
It's one of the downsides of being in Starfleet. If being in Starfleet was better across the board, everybody would be doing it, you know. But still, most citizens don't join Starfleet.
Most people don't join Starfleet, and I what is kind of emphasized throughout all the Star Treks is like, even if you love being in Starfleet and you want to visit all these new worlds and whatever things, like sometimes you just want a break from living on a spaceship, because I think living on a spaceship, I think like the Voyager crew maybe didn't necessarily, they had the toughest because they got to stop here and there at planets, but mostly they were living on that ship for 7 years. And in the original timeline before Admiral Janeway changed it, I guess it was closer to like 25 years they spent on that ship. I don't know if I had to spend 25 years with the same 135 people or whatever the crew of Voyager was in this like small tin can of 15 decks, it could wear on you, eating the same replicated food or even eating Neelix's hair pasta or whatever the hell he's making.
Chasing after the same Delaney sister.
Going the wrong Delaney sister.
The wrong Delaney sister.
The wrong sister. Jeremy's just pointing out, how come Vancouver hasn't been the Canadian spot to go in film versus Toronto?
That's a good question.
Because Toronto looks more like a Paris.
Right. Well, we do have wine here in Ontario, and I don't think they do in Vancouver. But
I think it has to come down. Like, I know that Battlestar Galactica shot in Toronto and Vancouver, and a couple other sci-fi shows have been shot there, like Andromeda,
Supernatural,
Stargate, and things like that. It all usually comes down just who's got the best tax incentives right now, and where can you make the most budget. And I think that's maybe why Toronto is, and also Toronto's kind of a. It's a little bit closer. It's a bigger city than Vancouver. It's Eastern time zone. That might be a motivator too.
Yeah, I think Vancouver is more of a long haul place. Like if you want to do a show for 15 seasons like Supernatural did, I think you want to be in Vancouver. But if you're doing a few seasons, I think you want to do Toronto, because Toronto, you can go back and forth between New York. You can get to LA. You can. It's a big hub, Toronto. So.
This
also cubes are delicious, by the way.
Purple cube. And this whole conversation also makes me think about the show Sliders,
that's a great show. I love Sliders.
Starred Jerry O'Connell, who's the voice of Ransom. You'll never guess his secret identity, and so that
Da Vinci.
And Da Vinci. It had the guy John Rhys Davies from Indiana Jones who was on that show. And the first 2 seasons are shot in Vancouver. And then they took the show to LA that's when the things started to go wrong on that show. You see sometimes this where a show moves locations, and that being the most dramatic change that you could possibly see. Just wanted to point that out. Jerry O'Connell.
Oh wait, did John Rhys Davies didn't voice Da Vinci on the Lower Decks when Da Vinci showed up, did he?
I don't think he did, no. But he was the Da Vinci on Voyager for was that 1 or 2 seasons? The hologram, the Da Vinci hologram. I was glad when that hologram was over. And this kind of came up in the Deep Space Nine discussion this week, because we talked about Arman Bashir, Davan, and that's a holodeck episode. And Jeff was kind of saying, I don't know if I always love these holodeck episodes. This was kind of like that, but more of a series of holodeck skits. Where do you stand on holodeck episodes?
I like them better than Mirror Universe episodes.
Right.
No, I generally like holodeck episodes. I mean, I think there's a few stinkers in TNG, like that. What is it?
The one with the binars.
It's got Fistful of Datas. Yeah, the one with the binars.
Fistful of Datas is not my favorite either. But the ones with Moriarty, I don't dislike necessarily. There's 2 of them.
The Robin Hood one, I could take or leave.
Not a holodeck episode; it's a Q episode.
Oh, right. But
everyone,
I'm thinking of the Three Musketeers with Reg.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
I was I guess for some people it's I think especially on
usually
Voyager,
probably leave them more so than take them, but
because Voyager used
I like them more on DS9. DS9 had some good ones.
Even that Vic Fontaine lounge.
I love everything about Vic Fontaine.
You don't think he was overused in season 7?
No, not at all. He's overused on our podcast, maybe.
In fact, we wanted him more.
We wanted more Vic Fontaine.
Yeah, more Vic, please. Come on, Pallies.
Come on, Pally. Hey, Pally. Hey, Pally.
Listen, Pally, you gotta lighten up.
Yeah, you gotta be tickling the ivories or whatever you're doing, Pally. Okay, so
I love it. Love it.
Let's get into our ratings, because we've kind of I think we've talked about everything we can with this episode. I'm guessing Jaemeel is not joining us.
Best holodeck episode though, Bada Bing Bada Bang.
He did send us a rating, but he sent it to the chat with me and Daryl. Okay, that's okay. So let's bring this up and rate this episode. Excretus. By the way, I will be out next week. So Jeff, you're going to be leading that podcast.
Yeah.
So whatever that's gonna, we don't know what that name is going to be, but Excretus. I'm going to start us off, and I liked this episode quite a bit. I give it a 8 something, 8.7. Got the 4. Jeff,
10. I'm a 10.
You're going 10. Wow,
Yeah.
that's
No.
You get like you gave to we always have Tom Paris. Jaemeel, I believe he's giving this rating, if I'm reading this right, a 7.3. And Davin, over to you.
9.
9. Okay, that's
My
really
favorite
good.
of this season. Yeah.
Favorite so far. So averaging out at an 8.8, our second highest for this season. I'm just taking a quick look to see what so far this has a 9.2 with only 39 ratings on IMDb, but we're going with it. And mentioned written by Ann Kim, who wrote Moist Vessel in season 1. And
What
who
did I
you say
rate?
this?
What did I rate Moist Vessel?
What one was Moist Vessel?
Yeah, I forget which one that was.
What was Moist Vessel? Okay, well, I'll have to look up that.
There, I rated it a 6.5, so that's quite an improvement. And Kim.
Yeah, Moist Vessel. Just to remind us, was when Captain Freeman. That was where Mariner got promoted up to lieutenant, and they made her like a yellow shirt. And she was she was like kind of in the grind of like working constantly and never being able to go there. And
I think I was down on the show at that point, and I probably re-rate the episode higher if I have to rate it today.
You can always rewatch it, and because hey, like that was where like that was kind of like the start of the mother-daughter stuff. Really, was Moist Vessel.
Yeah.
Okay, so Excretus, 8.8, guys, pretty good. And so we're only got 2 left for this season, I think, if I'm correct. I think there's only 10 episodes this season. So next week is the 9th episode. And who knows? We never know anything about these episodes until about 2 days before they come out. But I will be out next week, so you guys will be talking about that one. I will be. I'll give you guys my rating after the fact. And what am I forgetting? Anything else?
Listen to Locutors of Trek.
Listen to Locutors of Trek. I was just on Debate 9 on
Debate
Sunday.
9.
The first visual.
Dave came in, tried to sabotage the whole thing. No,
I tried,
but failed.
He failed.
I threw my wooden shoes called sabot into them to stop it, as Valeris would tell us.
Hence sabotage.
Yeah, so next week, Star Trek Deep Space Nine will be on Tuesday night. Jeff will be talking about that one. You're going to be talking about Homefront and Paradise Lost, the 2-parter.
Oh, so good.
I'm kind of bummed I'm missing out on this, but
Davin, if you want to join us, you're more than welcome because we are down Dave anyway. And
when's that?
Next Tuesday night. Next Tuesday at 9.
Yeah, I'm probably down. Definitely remind me.
I will,
because I have a baby brain.
No, I get it.
Next Tuesday night.
Will.
No original series next week. Our dad is still traveling abroad, and I'm also off, so we're not doing original series next Monday. Still 5 episodes to go in our original series rewatch, and then Lower Decks next week. Also,
How
check
many
out
more we got in Lower Decks?
Only 2.
Oh, wow.
I think. Hold on, let me confirm this because it seems like Lower Decks should actually go further because I was. Yeah, it's only 2 left. So we'll be done by October 14th. And then it's not till October 28th that Star Trek Prodigy starts. So we're going to get at least a week or 2 off there, Davin, in between.
I will have you on over at Locutors of Trek.
We'll do some Locutors, yeah, in the meantime. Also, check out our other channels, including Trivial Debates, our monthly channel where we argue about movies, TV, sports, and more. Davin was just on that show. We have a movie round, a TV round. We argue about different subjects. We had Chris Seymour hosting. We do that at the last Sunday of every month. Check out that channel, which can be found on all of our links. And also Super Mater Brothers Podcasting, our 3rd channel, which is about everything TV and movies that is not Star Trek related that we like to watch and talk about, including Big Brother season 23, which just wrapped last night. Jeff and Jaemeel and I were up till 1 a.m. talking about the finale. And then we're going to be back tonight, actually, in about an hour and a half to talk about the 2nd episode of the new season of Survivor, season 41, called the episode called Juggling Chainsaws, because we need to catch up from last night because it did air last night, but so much going on. Who can keep up? So those are all those things. And I'm going away and I'm not podcasting for a week, but appreciate you guys keeping things moving. It's going to be good. All right. I think that's it. Thank you for the podcast, guys. And thanks for ratings. And we can sign off for tonight. And, let's bring the banner back up. And I think we know the perfect clip to go out on. As we say, live long in podcast. Have a great night. It is